It sounds like something that shouldn't exist. A story that feels more like fiction than reality. Falling from the sky, from a height so extreme that survival isn't just unlikely, it's considered impossible. 30,000 feet. That's not just high. It's beyond anything the human body is designed to endure. At that altitude, even being outside for seconds is dangerous. Falling from it is supposed to be final. And yet, somehow, one person lived through it. Her name was Vesna Vulović, and what happened to her that day still doesn't fully make sense even now. It was 1972, and for her it began like any other day. No fear, no warning, just routine. She was a flight attendant, young, energetic, doing a job she had done before, walking through the aisle, checking passengers, offering drinks, making sure everything was in order. The kind of work that becomes second nature, the kind of environment where nothing feels unpredictable. Inside the aircraft, everything felt calm, controlled. The low hum of the engines in the background. Passengers talking quietly, some looking out the windows, watching the clouds drift by. From that height, the world below feels distant, almost unreal. You're above everything, detached, safe. And that's the illusion, because at 30,000 feet, you're not closer to safety. You're closer to danger. The aircraft was Jet Flight 367 crash, flying across Europe, high above the ground. There was no sign of trouble, no visible issue, no announcement that something was wrong. And then, without warning, everything changed. There was an explosion, not gradual, not building, instant. A violent force tearing through the aircraft, breaking it apart in seconds. The structure failed. The pressure inside disappeared. The cabin, which moments ago felt secure, was suddenly exposed to the open sky. Metal twisted, sections separated. People were thrown. There was no time to react, no time to understand. One moment, you're standing inside a plane. The next, there is no plane. Just sky, just air, and falling. At that altitude, falling isn't something your mind can process. There's no reference point, no control, no way to stop it. It's not like falling from a height you can imagine. This is something else, something vast, endless, overwhelming. But something unusual happened. Vesna didn't fall the same way as the others. She was trapped, pinned inside a section of the aircraft. Her body caught between parts of the structure, unable to move, unable to separate from the wreckage. And that piece of wreckage, instead of dropping cleanly, began to tumble. It didn't fall straight. It rotated, shifted, slowed, each movement changing the speed, reducing the impact, just slightly, just enough. As it fell and it struck the mountain, not once, but multiple times, through trees, through snow, across the slope, each impact absorbing energy, breaking momentum, turning what should have been a single fatal moment into a series of smaller ones. And then it stopped. On a mountainside, silent, cold, still, and somehow, impossibly, she was alive. When rescuers arrived, they didn't expect to find anyone breathing. From that height, survival isn't considered possible. It's not something you search for. It's something you assume doesn't exist. But then, they saw her, inside the wreckage, unconscious, broken, but alive, barely breathing, but alive. And in that moment, everything they believed about survival changed. She was rushed to the hospital. Her injuries were severe, multiple fractures, internal damage, conditions that even on their own would be life-threatening. Combined, they should have been fatal. Doctors worked immediately, because even though she had survived the fall, the danger wasn't over. Days passed. Her body remained fragile, uncertain, and then, slowly, something began to change. She stabilized. Her condition improved, piece by piece. Her body began to recover, not quickly, not easily, but steadily. And then, she woke up, with no memory of what had happened, no memory of the explosion, no memory of the fall, just the aftermath, just survival. And that's what makes this story so powerful, because it shouldn't have happened. Everything about it points to the same conclusion: no survival. And yet, that's not what happened, because sometimes Outcomes are shaped by details we don't fully understand. The position of the body, the structure of the wreckage, the angle of impact, the environment below. Each factor, small on its own, but together, they created something extraordinary. A chain of events that turned the impossible into reality. She later became known around the world, recognized for surviving the highest fall without a parachute. A record that doesn't feel like a record. It feels like something else. Something beyond explanation. Because we like to believe that the world follows rules, that certain events always lead to certain outcomes, that falling from that height always ends the same way. But this story breaks that belief. It shows that sometimes, even when everything says it's over, it isn't. And that's what makes it unforgettable. Not just the fall, but the survival. Because falling is easy to imagine, but surviving isn't. And if you think about it, that's what stays with you. The idea that even in the worst possible situation, there is still a chance. A small one, a fragile one, but real. And maybe that's what this story really is. Not just about a fall, but about possibility. About how unpredictable life can be, how outcomes can change in ways we don't expect, and how sometimes, against everything, people survive. And if this story made you stop, even for a moment, that's because it should, because it reminds us that even in situations where survival seems impossible, it isn't always the end. Sometimes, it's just the beginning of a story no one can fully explain. If you want more stories like this, real stories, powerful stories, the kind that stay with you long after they're over, then stay here, because the next story might feel just as impossible.